Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Hello and welcome to the course on optimization. This course code is MTH374 and it's a course for MSc Mathematics students at virtual campus of Comsats Institute of Information Technology, Islamabad. Right, so we will briefly discuss what is this course all about. But first, a brief introduction of your instructor. So my name is Dr. Muhammad Fazil Anwar and I am an assistant professor at Department of Mathematics, Comsats Institute of Information Technology, Islamabad campus. Okay, and I have done my PhD in mathematics from University of York, UK. Right, so my specific area of expertise is algebra, and I will be talking about the course of optimization with you throughout the course of this semester. This course is a fairly basic course. It's part of your MSc degree, but it's not a very hard course, to be honest. You can probably say that most of this course has been covered in different areas of mathematics that you have already studied. What's the purpose of teaching optimization then? Very roughly, very roughly, you can probably say that the purpose of teaching optimization to you is most of the time the students ask the questions, where is the application of mathematics in real life? And we do not really talk about applications of mathematics in those mathematics courses because our aim, our objective, our main theme of those courses is not to discuss the applications, but the aim is to teach you mathematics as a subject, right? Not its applications. So optimization, in this course of optimization, you will study the applications of different areas of mathematics, different subjects of mathematics, like calculus, like linear algebra, and some others that you have studied before. We will discuss their applications in real life in this course. Okay, so you will see many problems arising from real life, and then you will be asked to formulate the problem mathematically, and then you'll be asked to solve them, right? So that's the main aim of this course. But this is all of this course is definitely not known to you. We will develop certain new techniques from literature that will be entirely new to you, and we will apply them to real life problems. So this is not a very mathematical course in nature. This is more of an application course, if you like. So if you are interested in application side of mathematics, I'm sure you will enjoy this course a lot. Okay, so let's briefly move on, and throughout this course, this is mainly an introductory lecture, right? So in this lecture we will mainly discuss what will be in this course and what sort of problems we'll be dealing with, what are our limitations, and throughout this semester what we will be talking about. So most of this lecture will be about this, right? So a part of this lecture will also set up some rules, some background for the rest of this course, right? So let's move on. Okay, so you will of course be interested to know some books, right? So here are a couple of books that you can get off the market. They are available. They are fairly basic books, right? So they are not very hard. There are certain other books as well. So these are not the only books that you can consult. There can be other books, and there will be some other books that you can consult, right? So most of the optimization theory books have the similar contents and similar material. Just the way the author writes it is usually different. Also, you will be provided some handouts, some lecture notes, so you can consult them as well. But of course, book is always better than any handouts, any notes, because that's the complete package. Okay, So first book is your textbook. So that's also the book that we usually teach in Comsats, Institute of Information Technology, not the virtual campus. Okay, so it's called Introduction to Optimization Theory. Introduction to Optimization Theory by Byron S. Gottfried and Joel Weisman. Okay, so these are the two authors of this book. This is a fairly basic book written in very plain English. Okay, so it has a lot of story. It's not very mathematical. It has all the mathematics stuff as well, but it does contain the introductory stuff that you would need, and a lot of motivational discussions as well. Second book is Optimization Theory and Practice. Okay, it's by Mohan C. Joshi. This is more mathematical, if you like. Okay, so this book will contain all the mathematical things that we need, even the basic ones from calculus and linear algebra and other areas of mathematics that you will need. And also this book then concentrates on the methods that you will develop for this course, and then picks out individual problems and then just applies those methods to the problems that you have picked, right? So it's a very mathematical and very to the point book. There are many other books, right? So there is a very famous book as well. It's called An Introduction to Optimization Theory, right? So that's another book you can maybe get off the market. So whichever you can basically find, and also the lecture notes, right? So it's just a matter of preference. The way of writing of the author, if it suits you, then that's the book for you. But most of the material that I'll cover in this course will be from your textbook. Okay, so if you want one book that is the main reference for you, you can just basically get that book. Okay, right. So you are probably, you have done many courses before starting the course of optimization, so you are familiar that at Comsats Virtual Campus how the marking and grading system works. So there will be 3 credit hours for this course. So 3 credit hours means 3 teaching hours per week. Okay, so you will have basically 2 classes per week. Okay, so total marks are 100 for this subject, and they are divided into certain parts and certain areas. So there are 2 sessional exams in the semester, as you are aware. So first sessional will be 10 marks and second sessional will be 15 marks. First sessional and second sessional will be conducted during your semester, right? So after certain period of time. Okay, so there will be at least 3 quizzes and 3 assignments as well, right? So you have to submit them, and there are 25 marks for these quizzes and assignments. So it's usually up to the instructor, but maybe 10 marks for the quizzes, 15 for assignments, and 15 for quizzes and 10 for assignments, right? So it can change. Okay, and the terminal exam, the final exam of the semester, will be of 50 marks, right? So if you so passing marks in Comsats are usually 50 marks, right? So if you do not concentrate on during your semester, right, so you have already lost 50 points, 50 marks, and the only marks you have available are 50 marks for your terminal, right? So it's usually very hard to get 50 out of 50 in terminal exam, right? So if you want to do well, you have to concentrate throughout the semester. It's not an annual system, it's a semester system. So you cannot just work for a couple of weeks at the end of the semester and get the good marks. You have to be on your toes for the whole of the semester if you really want to do well in this course, right? So in any course for that matter. Okay, so this is fairly basic information that is already familiar to you, but just to reiterate. Okay, so course outline. What will be in this course? Okay, so here are the topics. I know that they are not familiar to you. This is a fact, but just to just to let you know about the names, right? So what will be the names of the topics that you will be talking about in this semester? You will probably get a detailed course outline. This is not very detailed. This is just an upshot, if you like. And so when you get the detailed course outline, you will see what are the detailed topics in each of this. So introduction to optimization. What is optimization, right? So we should know what is the definition of optimization. What are we trying to do? Okay. So just in last few minutes, I said that in optimization we apply mathematical concepts to real life problems. Okay. But the trouble is that a real life problem might not look very mathematical. So we have to first transform into the language of mathematics, and then we'll solve it, right? So sort of very roughly the way of transforming real life problems into mathematics is called mathematical models. Details are coming. There'll be some variables and objective functions. Again, details coming very soon. So what are these? We will talk about them. What are multi-factor objectives? Stationary values and extrema, relative and absolute extrema. Some words might be familiar to you from calculus. I hope they are. I hope, because you have done the course of calculus. Surely you have done it. So stationary points and extrema and relative and absolute extrema, they should be familiar to you. So we will again talk about them in this course with reference to our problems, and you will be able to understand why are we discussing them in this course, right? So they have a certain sense to the relevance of our course. Okay. Then finally, on this slide you have convex, concave, and unimodal functions. What are they? Again, some words familiar from calculus, right? So they should be fairly familiar to you. What are constraints? Well, that's another word. If you just look at the English meaning of this word, that you would probably say that constraints are some conditions, okay, some restrictions, okay. So some restrictions that are applied to a real life problem, because well, we are not very free to choose everything in real life. There are always some constraints, some conditions, some basic conditions that our problem have to obey. We cannot go out of those conditions. All the details are coming. What are mathematical programming problems? Again, this word programming, mathematical programming, you might relate it to the programming that you do in a programming language. It has some relation, but it's also slightly different as well. One-dimensional, multi-dimensional functions, again, may be familiar to you. What are Lagrange multipliers, and unconstrained optimization and linear programming. So these are some very bold topics, if you like, just the headings, if you like, of the contents of this course. There are a lot of details in them, which we will discuss as and when we get to them. Okay. Right, so let's move on. So let's briefly start our introduction to this course, right? So what is in this course? So here are some of the things we want to talk about today. So introduction, what is optimization? Well, surely we should know that. Why do we need optimization? That's another interesting question. So if we are studying a course and we are basically saying this is an application course, so maybe we should be able to relate it to our real life. Let's see how can we do that. What are some of the important real life optimization problems that we want to solve using mathematics? Okay, so that's a catchy word, a key word, right? So whenever we say apply mathematics to our problems, our real life problems. That's the essence, that's the core of studying science and mathematics. Do something for humanity, do something for our real life problems, do something for our personal problems, do something about the problems that we face at our workplace, right? So these are the things that if mathematics can help us with them, then probably we can convince the world that mathematics is useful and it's important, right? So every other person in this world thinks that mathematics is hard. Well, maybe it is, but not quite as hard as people think, right? So if you learn to work in mathematics and learn to love it, then you have a motivation, then probably mathematics is not that hard. But the trouble is we never have enough motivation to work in mathematics, right? So in the end, when we get bored and when we don't have a motivation, we say that mathematics is hard, which is of course not quite true. Well, it is true in some cases. Some areas of mathematics may be hard. Again, it's relative. Hard is relative because well, if you work in that area and you know the area well, then you will probably not say it's hard, right? So if you look from outside, everything will look hard to you, right? So that's the main aim. So we want to motivate mathematics. If we want to talk about mathematics, that we can talk to a layman, for example, right? So this is the kind of mathematics, not the kind of mathematics, but the kind of problems that are understandable to layman. But if we don't know mathematics, then we of course won't be able to solve them as effectively as using mathematics, right? So that's our goal. What are mathematical models? That's some detail coming up soon. What are variable and objective functions? And if we get time, we will also probably talk about multi-factor objectives, right? So these are all the planned topics for today. We might not get through all of them, but we will try and get through all of them, right? So let's look at some introduction of this course. Word optimization, right? So optimization is, you can probably very roughly say, it's choosing the best possible option. Choosing the best possible option. So there are certain options available to you. Every option will have its plus and minus points. So you have to choose the best possible options. So best possible option for us would be the option which has the most advantages and least disadvantages. And that option should also satisfy our needs. That's the important thing. So whichever option we choose, that should be best possible in every way, right? So that it should fulfill all our needs, needs of the hour, needs of the problem. It should also maybe require less time, maybe have more advantages, have less disadvantages, uses less resources, uses less money, let's say, for example. Okay, so all of these constraints, these conditions, if an option fulfills our objectives and that option is best possible among all the available options, so we would definitely like to have that, right? So optimizing a problem or its solution is finding the best possible solution to your problem. Finding the best possible solution to your problem. That's optimization. Okay, so every problem can be solved in different ways. There is always kind of a donkey way of doing a problem, right? So you go from point A to point B. Well, you just start working and you will get from point A to point B eventually. You don't care about which route you take. You don't care about what time you start walking and anything, right? So you just have to get from point A to point B. That's kind of a very naive way of doing anything. That's not how we work in real life, right? If we want to get from point A to point B in real life, we will think about which route we want to take, right? So maybe we have less time. We want the quickest route. Maybe we want to save our fuel. We want to take the shortest route. So all of these things are important in real life, that whatever options available to us, we always want to pick out the best possible. Okay, so the definition of optimization is written here. So I'm saying optimization is the art of obtaining best policies to satisfy certain objectives while at the same time satisfying fixed requirements. Okay, so it's a very precise and very complete statement, if you like. So it's an art. That's a debatable word. Art, well, you can probably say we are not students of arts. So we are saying optimization is an art. So it's probably not a science. Well, that's open for debate and question. But in this course, I'll convince you that optimization is more science than art. I'll try and convince you. But we will debate this word in a moment. So we want to obtain the best policies to satisfy certain objectives, right? So we always have an objective in mind. We want to go from one place to another, so we have an objective. So we want to go to point A to point B, but our restriction is it's already 9:15. Okay, so I want to get there by 9:30. So I've only got 15 minutes. So what do I have to do to get from this point to A point to B point in 15 minutes? Then I'll probably choose the quickest possible route. That probably may not be the shortest route, because shortest route might be crowded. It might have traffic on it, right? So all of these things will be under consideration. So I want to go from A to B, but I want to get there in 15 minutes. So I want to choose the quickest possible option. So my objective is go from point A to point B, but my fixed requirement is I want to get there in just 15 minutes. Okay, so so I want to obtain the best possible route. So that's a best policy in this case, which satisfy my objectives, and it also satisfies my requirement. Okay, so there is only one objective and one requirement. Okay, so let's look at another scenario. Maybe I have or you have a production factory. Okay, so in a production factory, there are a couple of big factors. For example, there are small factors which we will talk about later, but there are two major factors. First one is cost, second one is production, third one is profit. Okay, so it's always the aim of a factory owner that he wants to minimize his cost, he wants to maximize his production, and he also wants to maximize his profits. Okay, so there are three objectives here. He wants to minimize his cost, he also wants to minimize he also wants to maximize his production, and he also wants to maximize his profits. So there are three objectives, but there are of course some constraints. For example, he cannot operate the factory for 24 hours. He does not have enough labor, so that's his constraint. His fixed requirement that he cannot hire more than 50 people. So that's his fixed requirement. It cannot change. He only has 50 people. So those 50 people have to work, and he also has fixed revenue, right? He doesn't have infinite amount of money. So to buy, for example, the raw material or pay the bills or pay the taxes. So he only has finite amount of money to spend. So that's another condition that we have to take care of. So we cannot just say, well, you want to maximize profit and maximize your production, just operate the factory for 24 hours and hire infinitely many people and just invest infinite amount of money, and you will get a lot of profit. This is not how it works. Even if we recommend that, all of the production, he has to sell that, right? So there is not a demand of any certain object or any certain product. There is not an infinite demand of any product in the market, right? So demand is always finite and there are always competitors. So we have to take care of all these requirements and still fulfill his objectives, right? So that's another sort of optimization problem, if you like, right? So we want to choose the best possible option which satisfies our objectives, and it also satisfy our fixed requirements, already fixed, we cannot change them, right? So in this case, for example, in the factory running case, what is the best policy? You should tell him what are the optimal number of hours that the factory should run, that he gets the required production, and he also gets the maximum profits, right? So that's the best policy for him, for the factory owner, right? So in this course, for example, you will see some surprising things. It's a general belief that if you work without mathematics, which we usually work in business, so if you work without mathematics, the factory owner will say, run my factory for 24 hours and have 3 shifts, and I will excel and my profits will be high and everything. In this course, for example, I will show you many examples. In this case, the maximum profit solution is not that you run for the factory for 24 hours. This is not the best solution, because more you run the factory, more overhead cost. For example, you have to pay the workers, you have to pay the electricity bill, you have to, for example, pay the gas bills, you have to pay tax, more tax, right? So all of these things taken into consideration, most of the time the best possible solution would not be to run the factory for 24 hours and 30 days of the week. This will not be the best possible solution. Okay, so that's kind of raises an eyebrow, doesn't it? That our usual beliefs of business, the way we run our business, can basically change, and we can maximize our profits, and we can maximize our production, and we can maximize our business revenues if we use some very basic mathematics, right? So after studying this course, you will definitely be able to solve some of the basic problems that you will face in real life. Let's hope so. Right, so that's some of the explanation of the first statement. Let's look at the second statement that I'm writing here. So effective decision making, both in personal and professional capacity. Okay, effective decision making, that's the important part. So every effective decision will always be an advantage to you, and you will also minimize the risk of disadvantage. That's an effective decision, isn't it? Right, so effective decision in personal life, well, you might have very small decisions like going from one place to another, which is the best possible route. That's a very fairly basic problem, right? So that we face in everyday life, right? But if we make a bad decision in our personal life, like in this case, it's not disastrous. We will get late by, let's say, 10 to 15 minutes maybe, if we choose a different route, and maybe burn a little bit more fuel, but it's not disastrous in the sense that we don't lose too much. But we also have to make effective decisions in our professional capacity, right? So if we are a decision maker in a company and we make one bad decision, well, that's probably a career ruined, because every decision in our professional life has consequences, right? So if we make one bad decision, that's usually disastrous, right, for the company, if a bad decision is made at the top level. So effective decision making in professional capacity is very, very important. So whenever you make an effective decision in a professional capacity, you have to take all the factors into consideration and then come up with the best possible decision that suits your needs, right? So you cannot just make the best possible decision. It also has to suit your needs, because if a solution, or if a decision doesn't even satisfy your needs, why would you make that decision? So you have to make a decision that satisfies your needs, but also minimizes the risk of, for example, disaster, or minimizes the risk of being a bad decision. Okay, so mathematics and optimization will help you make better decisions in both personal and professional capacity. We will of course see how this will happen. Okay, then last statement on this slide I'm writing is choosing the best possible option. That's kind of how I roughly defined optimization. So choose the best option among the options available to you. Okay, so that's another theme of optimization. Okay, so optimization is an art of decision making, if like. Optimization is an art of decision making, but this art has been transformed, most of this art has been transformed into mathematics. So as soon as your problem comes into mathematics and you solve it mathematically and your decision comes through mathematics, then it becomes a science. So in this course we will transform this art of decision making in many cases into a scientific decision making done using mathematics. So it's an art, but it can also be studied using science, using mathematics in this case, for example. Okay, so that's our aim, that's our goal for this course. Okay, introduction, some further topics in that. We will also, as I've just iterated, that we will also learn how to transform certain practical problems, certain everyday problems, real life problems into mathematics, right? So we will first have to transform the problem into language of mathematics if you really want to solve it using mathematics, right? So it's kind of common sense, isn't it? Okay, so we will also study, develop some techniques, mathematical techniques that will help us solve these problems. Once the problem is converted into mathematics, we will then use our mathematical knowledge and concepts, some already known concepts and knowledge, some new concepts and knowledge, to solve those problems that we have just transformed into mathematics. Okay. Also, I have explained this a couple of times now, but again, just to emphasize that in this course we will look into some concepts of calculus and linear algebra, some other branches of mathematics as well, but mostly from calculus and linear algebra, and even real analysis as well, and many other areas of mathematics basically, and we will try and apply them to real life, right? So if you go back a couple of steps, we have transformed a problem into mathematics. Now we have to solve it, right? So we will only solve it using the existing knowledge of mathematics that we have, right? So we will use that knowledge from calculus and linear algebra to solve those problems. All of this is going to become clear very, very soon to you. Okay. So in short, we are trying to make the art of effective decision making into a science, into mathematics, right? So we want to convert the art of effective decision making into mathematics. Of course, this cannot be done every time. So we cannot basically convert every single problem into mathematics and then solve it. There are limitations on us. Maybe we can convert the problem into mathematics, but solving it may require a lot of time, huge computer machine that might not be available to us. So there are certain limitations on our problem. Maybe the parameters of the problem are so many that we cannot really handle it in mathematics, right? So there are always constraints. Not every problem can be solved using optimization and mathematics, but many can be solved. So if we can at least resolve some of our problems, then even then it's a very good starting point, right? So here we go. Some of the problems that we face in real life, and why are they optimization problems? So first one is, there is a company, for example, it makes canned food, right? So you usually go to a supermarket and get some canned food. For example, there are canned beans, there are canned fruits, and even some cooked canned let's say food. So all of these are available in the market. So let's say there is a company which makes these food, okay? So the company has only 2 food processing plants. There is one in Karachi and there is another one in Peshawar. There are only 2, but of course the company operates throughout the country, right? So Karachi and Peshawar are the only food processing plants, but the company has to distribute all its food to all of the country, right? So it has 4 distributing warehouses. First one is in Lahore, Quetta, Islamabad and Multan. Food is usually not transferred straight from the processing plant to let's say your supermarkets or your shops. It usually goes to distribution warehouses, right? So this company that we are considering has 4 of these warehouses. So in these cities, for example, right? So there are a few important questions here. First question is, right, so food is being made in Karachi and Peshawar. So there will be demand for the canned food in the country, okay? So Lahore, Quetta, Islamabad, Multan, these are your distribution points. So how much food should you ship to all these 4 places? So you cannot basically say, I have made 100 units, let's send 25 units to each place. That's not the way you should work, because maybe Islamabad has more demand for canned food and Quetta has hardly any demand for canned food. So you have to take care of this consideration, that what is the demand for your food. So then you have to carefully consider the demand. So that's your fixed requirement, that what is the demand of your food, your canned food, right? So then you have to carefully send that amount of canned food to these warehouses, okay? Then there are also other factors you must consider. For example, if you want to send food from Karachi to, let's say, Islamabad, it will take a lot of time. It will also cost you more in transportation cost, right? But maybe if you want to send food from Karachi to Quetta, the distance is relatively small. It will probably cost you less in transportation cost. So you have to be careful how much you want to spend on transportation cost, right? So every destination in this list will have different transportation cost, okay? So you have to take care of the resources that you have, the money you can spend on transportation cost, because no one will transport the food for you for free. So you will always have to pay the transportation cost. So if you have only a fixed amount of money that you want to spend on transportation cost, then you have to be careful that you have a demand and then you have a fixed transportation cost amount. So you have to maximize the fulfillment of your demand while making sure that you do not spend more than you have. Okay. Also, there are two plants, Karachi and Peshawar. So each plant has a different capacity to produce, let's say, food. Maybe Karachi plant is bigger, so it has more capacity. You can make more canned food in Karachi. The Peshawar plant is maybe smaller, so you can make less canned food. So if you want to, let's say, you will say Islamabad is very close to Peshawar, but Peshawar is a small plant, so Peshawar cannot fulfill all the requirements of Islamabad. So then you have to go back to Karachi. So maybe you want to say, even Lahore is close to Peshawar, so maybe I want to serve Lahore from Peshawar, but this may not be possible because the plant may be so small that it cannot serve these two cities. So all of these fixed requirements on you are already there. So you have to make sure that you fulfill your production demands. You also ship the appropriate amount of food, while making sure that you do not spend more than the transportation cost that you have. And also you have to make sure that you do not ask for more food from a plant than it can actually produce. So there are all these conditions that you have to take care of if you want to run your company properly. If you do not ship enough food to Islamabad and there is more demand, then there will be, of course, shortage in Islamabad of your food, and of course you won't be able to sell your food and you won't be able to get profits, because there are no revenues, there are no profits, because you are not selling anything. So you have to fulfill the demands while working in your given parameters. You cannot exceed your parameters. Whatever requirements you have to fulfill them, while there are the constraints on you. You cannot bypass them, right? So that's an optimization problem. That's a transportation problem. That you have to use the best possible way to use your resources. You want to maximize your profits. You want to choose the best possible route so that your transportation cost is minimum. And all this, there are multi-factor optimization here, right? So you want to optimize different things, while you also want to maximize different things, and you also want to minimize certain things, right? So you want to minimize your cost and some other factors, but you want to maximize your profits. Okay, you want to maximize your revenues, for example, right? So all of these things should be taken into consideration if you want to solve this problem. But this is not a problem created by mathematics. This is a usual problem that people face in real life. If you run a company, you will be familiar with this problem. But unfortunately, we seldom use mathematics to solve these problems in Pakistan. We just use the maybe the hit and trial method, right? So let's Islamabad people have more demand. Let's send everything to Islamabad and then forget about the rest because they are not important customers. This is totally wrong policy for any business. Every single customer is important. You have to fulfill the demand of every single customer of yours. Most of the production, maybe let's say Karachi is the hub of all the production, and Karachi is very far from many cities of Pakistan. So everything gets shipped from Karachi to other places, and then usually there is a shortage of something. So that's because we never use mathematics. We just say, well, we have worked this way for years and years, let's keep working on it. If you have worked on something for years and years and it's the wrong thing, that's probably not the thing to continue. Okay, so when you are done with this course, we will look at one solution of this particular problem. Maybe may not be in a very general setting, but you will be able to solve this problem in some specific settings. Okay, so this is one problem of an optimization optimization problem that you will talk about. Okay, so optimization, again, if you look at in the context of this problem, it's maximizing and minimizing certain things. Optimization is maximizing and minimizing certain things. Okay, so that's probably what you will call optimization. Okay, so you have to maximize certain things while you also have to minimize certain things. So both of these things should have to be taken into account. Okay, so let's look at another problem, another engineering design problem, which is again happens all the time. Okay, so as you know, there is a shortage of electricity in Pakistan, right? So if we can somehow find a way to maximize the use of our electricity while minimizing the actual electricity we use, that would be very, very nice. Here is a sort of basic problem that we usually have. So we want to lit up a room. So we want to fix, let's say, we have a huge hall and we want to have some, let's say, tube lights in it, or some energy savers or whatever, or lamps, whatever you want to call them. But you don't want to put a light in every corner and every, let's say, after every 1 foot of the room. That would be too much light. We just want to have the just the right amount of light, but we also want to use the least possible electricity. That's the kind of thing every Pakistani should be thinking, right? So we don't have enough electricity, so let's maximize our whatever we have. So let's maximize the use of whatever we have. So mathematics can help you. Mathematics can help you decide how can you, let's say, put your lamps in the room such that you will have enough light in all of your room while you use the minimum power. So you want to put some rooms in a huge area, let's say a hall. Every lamp has a total power limit. You know that. Every tube light has a certain watts. Every energy saver has certain watts. So there is a capacity to every electrical item that we use. So it will produce a finite amount of light. Okay. Several points in a room have a desired illumination level, right? For example, there is a part of the room where you usually work. Okay, so there is you have a computer desk there. You have your working desk. So you will need more light there. And if you let's say sleep in a part of room, you don't really need too much light there. Okay, so every part of the room should have a certain desired illumination level. For example, there is a sitting place in your room where you invite your guests and they sit there. Usually people like the sitting space to have more light, right? So you can fix, you can already provide that this area should have this much light. Okay, so all of these conditions can be taken into consideration. So how much power should you apply to each lamp to get as close as possible to desired level? Okay, so you have to provide the power to each lamp, and also maybe you also want to think about, you don't want to use too many lamps, right? So still you want to obtain the desired level of lighting in your room. Okay, so here are a couple of more constraints that you can add. If you have, let's say, a certain amount of power available, you should not assign more than half of the light to, let's say, 5 lamps. If you have 5 lamps which are fixed in your key areas, let's say near your working table, in your living space, for example, then you should not provide them more than 50% of the electricity available. You should provide them, you can provide them maximum 50% or less than that. And also you can also apply another restriction that you don't want to turn on more than 15 lamps. That's 15 lamps is already a lot of, let's say, lights turned on, because they will use a lot of electricity. So we say that no more than 15 lights will be turned on at the same time, so that we can, let's say, save electricity. Okay, so you want to again optimize the solution of this problem while taking into consideration all these things. So your constraints are, for example, you cannot turn on more than 15%, 15 lamps. Your second constraint, your second condition is that you should provide desired level of lighting to certain areas. Okay, so every area should have its desired level of lighting. And the third condition, the first here, is you should not provide more than half of the electricity to 5 lamps. Okay, so these are the 3 conditions. But what is your desired objective? You want to light up all the room to the level you want. Okay, so that's the another engineering problem that we can solve using optimization, and that these are the kind of problems we will also talk about in this course. Okay, there is another problem. You are familiar with World Health Council, so it's a medical team distribution problem. They usually send medical teams to underdeveloped countries, right? So there are World Health Council or organization teams that are sent to certain underdeveloped countries. They go there and set up medical camps and help the people in need. So there are only 5 teams available, 5 medical teams available. So in each medical team, you can probably say there will be a couple of doctors, there will be a nurse, there will be a helping staff, and there will be transportation staff. So all of these people will be in a medical team, right? So you have to allocate 5 teams to 3 different countries. Okay, so there are only 5 teams available, and there are 3 countries that you need to send the teams to. Okay, right. So first thing first, that you cannot assign partial teams or partial people. Of course, this is true. You cannot send a half a person, but you can also not break up the team, because every member of the team is important to the team. If you take away one person from the team, that team is not functional in the same way it was before, because every single person which is part of the team has a specific purpose that the person has to fulfill, because he's a part of the team. So you cannot assign partial teams. If you are sending 2 teams to one country, then you have to send 2 teams, right? So you cannot send, let's say, 1.5 team. That doesn't make sense. Okay. The second restriction is each team added gains more person years of life saved in the country. So if you send 1 team to one country, it will save lives. Okay, it will probably save lives. If you send 2 teams to certain country, then it will probably save more lives. But here is a table which tells you that there are 3 countries, 1, 2, 3, and there are number of teams, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams. Okay, so if you send 1 team to country 1, it will save 45 lives. Okay, if you send 2 teams, if you send 1 team to country 2, it will save 20 lives. If you send 1 team to country 3, it will save 50 lives. Okay, so now if you only look at this table and its second, third row, you will probably say, if we send all the teams to country 3, it will save more lives. But the problem is, lives in country 1 and country 2 are equally important. So you want to save the maximum possible lives, but you also want to serve the 3 countries, because you cannot just ignore the lives of the people of one country. Okay, but if you look at the second fourth row, the row with the 2 written there, you will see that if you send 2 teams to country 1, it will save 70 lives. If you save 2 teams to 45 to country 2, it will save 45 lives. If you send 2 teams to country 3, it will save 70 lives. Now, if you send 2 teams to country 1 and country 3, it's the same thing, okay? Because it will save 70 lives in country 1. It will save 70 lives in country let's say 3, okay? But if you just move on to the last row, if you send all 5 teams to country 2, it will save 150 lives. Country 2, 150 lives. But country 1, 120 lives. Country 3, 130 lives. So before you are thinking, you should not send anyone to country 2 because they will only save 20 lives. But now you are saying, if you send all of them to country 2, they will save 150 lives, let's say. Or these are in thousands, right? So 150,000 lives. Okay? So now you have a decision to make, right? So what are the number of teams you should send to country 1, country 2, country 3, that the total lives saved are maximum. So you want, this is not a let's say a very simple problem. You are talking about saving lives, right? So this is not something we can ignore, okay? So you want to send the optimal number of people to the best possible number of people, teams to each country, that the number of lives saved are maximum, okay? But you should not ignore the lives of the people of one country and prefer the lives of the people of the other country. You should send people to all of these 3 countries, okay? Right, so that's another restriction. So you want to optimize the number of lives saved. You want to optimize how many teams you should send to each country. And so basically you want to send the minimum number of teams, and you want to save the maximum number of lives. And you also want to send at least 1 team to each country. And you also cannot partially send a team, okay? So these are your restrictions, and you should also your objective is to save the most number of lives. So that's the problem. Okay, so this is another optimization problem. Maximizing one thing, minimizing other thing. Minimize certain quantities, that's optimization. Okay. Another problem 4, inventory levels. So that's probably the last problem we'll talk about in today's lecture. So there is a wholesale bicycle distributor. It doesn't have to be a bicycle distributor. It's just one example. So there is a let's say wholesale distributor of, let's say, rice, or a wholesale distributor of, let's say, wheat, or a wholesale distributor of, let's say, motorcycles, cars, whatever you want to call it, right? So there are many wholesale businesses and wholesale distributors in each country. Okay. So what this particular wholesale distributor does is, it purchases bikes from manufacturer and supplies to many shops. So there is a bike manufacturer, I don't know, whichever company you prefer. If it's a motorcycle, maybe you want to say Honda. So there is a manufacturer of bikes, and this wholesale distributor buys bikes in bulk from the manufacturer and supplies them to many shops, many retail shops in let's say a certain city, for example Rawalpindi. Okay, so it purchases bikes from manufacturer and supplies to many shops. The demand to each shop is uncertain, right? So that's kind of clear, because you don't know when a customer will come and buy a bicycle. You cannot predict that. But maybe people buy more bikes in summer, and people buy less bikes in winter, for example, because in winter it's very cold, so it's very hard to ride a bike. But in summer it's usually, if even it's very warm, but in the evenings you can definitely ride bikes and you can exercise on them and whatever. Okay, so maybe if you live in a foreign country, then you just basically need a bike, because if you don't have a bike, well, then probably you will not be very mobile. You have to use the buses and everything, but if you have a bike, then you are usually very mobile. Okay, so demand is definitely uncertain. You cannot predict when customers will come and buy bicycles from retail shop, so you cannot predict the orders that you will get from those shops. The wholesale distributor cannot predict the orders, but of course when someone comes and asks for, let's say, 100 bikes from him, he should be able to deliver, because if he doesn't deliver, he will go to some other distributor and buys from him, and he will lose in revenues and hence lose in profits. So he has to consider certain parameters. There are parameters. First parameter is he should have enough bikes stored so that he can meet the needs of the people, needs of his retail businesses. Okay, the shops where he supplies those bikes. Okay, then there are certain limitations on him. He is buying them from a manufacturer, so he has to pay them. Okay, so maybe he only has a finite amount of money, as we all usually have. All right, so he maybe only have let's say 200,000 rupees. That's all he can spend. Okay, so there is only a fixed number of bikes that he can purchase, but he has only 200,000 rupees. He cannot just go and ask the manufacturer, just give me bikes for 200,000 rupees. That's not how a business is run, because there are other costs. He has to have a warehouse where he stores all these bikes, right? So if his warehouse doesn't have the capacity to store let's say the bikes, let's say 200 bikes that he purchases for 200 rupees, then he has to probably hire another warehouse. There'll be cost. He doesn't want to bear that cost, so he has to make sure that he doesn't order too much that he cannot store. Similarly, there is a shortage cost. If he doesn't have enough, he will not sell enough, and he will not have enough sales, and eventually he will lose money. Okay, so if he doesn't have enough, then when an order comes, he will not be able to deliver the order. So he has to have enough that he can fulfill the orders. He must not exceed the holding cost. He must also not get too much bogged down into paying, let's say, for another warehouse. He just wants to store the bikes that he can store in his existing warehouse. And also, he has to pay the ordering cost to manufacturer. He has to pay the money because he's buying something. So all of these factors taken into consideration, he has to decide how many bikes he should buy that he will be able to fulfill the demands in the best possible way. He will be able to fulfill the demands of his customers, his retail customers, and while he has to minimize his cost. That's probably the problem that has been explained to you. Okay, so we have discussed 4 problems that can be solved using optimization. These 4 problems are discussed in detail, but these are not the only optimization problems that exist in real life. Here is a list of optimization problems that we can solve, but this is not the complete list by any way. This is only a short list of some problems that we can solve. There is a huge long list that we can incorporate here. So here is a list of some of the problems that can be solved using optimization. Okay, finding the shortest route. I think we dwelled on it a little bit, that we want to get from let's say Islamabad to Lahore. Maybe there are 2 routes available. Let's say you can either take the motorway or you can take the GT road. And for, let's say on the GT road, you can either go from the cities or you can go outside all the cities that come into your way. Okay, so shortest route is probably GT road, but that's not the quickest, definitely not the quickest, because there is more traffic on. Well, maybe it's the quickest as well if there is less traffic, but you may not want to take the GT road. You just want the quickest route. Maybe at certain times the motorway is the quickest route to get to from Islamabad to Lahore. It's definitely not the shortest, but it may be the quickest. Okay, so you have to be careful what is your objective. You want to save fuel or you want to save time. So whichever is your objective, you will decide your route accordingly. Okay, and then these are not the only route problems. You also want to find the best route under desired conditions. For example, you want to go from Islamabad to Lahore, but you want to go through Gujranwala because you have to drop something in Gujranwala. You have to visit a relative in Gujranwala. You have to pick someone up from Gujranwala and then go to Lahore. So now you cannot, for example, take the motorway, because if you want to go from motorway to Gujranwala, that's a very, very long way. Okay, so you will then have to be careful what is your route. So your route may have to satisfy certain desired conditions which are already set. You can, and this is the route problem, and I'm giving you very basic example, but this route problem is one of the most fundamental problems in optimization theory, and it's also one of the most fundamental problems faced to every company and every person that lives around. For example, if you have let's say you talk about TCS, for example. TCS is a company which delivers goods and packages in Pakistan. So a TCS person wants to start from his pickup point and go to, let's say, a certain place. But he cannot just say, I want to go from this place to that place and I have to just deliver that package. This is not how it works. He has to go from one place to another place, but he has to make many stops along the way. Okay, so he has to makes many stops along the way. So in his case, the requirements are all packages must be delivered, and also there are many other conditions. For example, some packages have to be delivered before the others, because let's say there is usually a service that your package will be delivered before 1 p.m. So whatever happens, the package has to be delivered before 1 p.m. So he cannot go to all other places before delivering that package. So that's another condition on him. But it's a huge company, right? So they want to maximize their resources. They just don't want to sell 100 people out in the city and just go and deliver the packages, and you can just take as many people as you like and take as many vehicles as you like. This is not how it works. So they have a limited workforce. They have to use that workforce. They have to minimize the production, the transportation cost, the fuel cost. It's probably one of the biggest overhead costs that a company has, right? A distribution company has. Okay, so choosing the best possible route which satisfies the desired conditions is important. Desired conditions: packages have to be delivered on time. You have to deliver all the packages. Certain packages must be delivered before the others, right? So these are all the desired conditions on your route. Okay, then you have to make an investment decision. You have a certain amount of money and you want to spend it, right? So you have to spend it wisely, of course. I'll explain these again in the next lecture. We are sort of running short of time, so you can also minimize the risk on profit. You can maximize the stock. You can design an aeroplane with minimum weight and desired capacity. You want to utilize your resources in the best possible way, optimize production within the constraints, minimize labor while obtaining desired results. You can also deploy an army to minimize damage by an enemy attack, for example. So all of these are optimization problems, and many more problems can be added to the list, right? So this is not an exhaustive list, definitely not an exhaustive list, okay? So if you look through all of these problems, these are the problems that we face in real life, okay? So when we start the course formally, you will be able to understand that, yeah, so this is the problem that relates to me. So how can I solve it using mathematics? So these are the kind of questions that you should be asking, and these are the sort of questions that we will be answering, okay? So in the end, I'll just summarize what we have done today. Right, summary. So what we have done today, we have talked about what is optimization and what will be in the course of optimization, okay? We have also talked about some very basic concepts of optimization and what are the sort of problems that we will be dealing in this course of optimization. So optimization, very roughly, is effective decision making, okay? So you have to make the best possible decision which satisfies your objective, and it also satisfies your desired conditions. So whatever the conditions on your requirement are, the sort of conditions which we have mentioned with certain problems. So optimization is effective decision making, choosing the best possible option among the options available to you, okay? Or it's the art of making policies that satisfies objectives and also satisfies certain conditions. So this is optimization. We then talked about certain problems that can be solved using optimization. Some of the problems are familiar to you, everyday problems. We made a list of many problems that you can attack using optimization. Of course, transforming those real life problems into mathematics and then solving them, okay? In the next lecture, we will start our course formally, and we will look into some mathematical tools that we'll be using and formally define what is an optimization problem and how can we transform a real life problem into an optimization problem, and then we'll look into their solutions. Okay, thank you very much for your time and attention, and hopefully I'll see you again in the next lecture. Thank you very much.